Welcome to the Immigration Therapist Podcast, a podcast for therapists that want to learn more about immigration evaluations and attorneys that want to learn more about the emotional and psychological aspect of these evaluations. So, on today's episode, we're going to talk about different schools of thoughts, informational evaluations versus advocating evaluations. So, since there are no overarching existing credentialed, agencies or organizations, associations for immigration evaluations, we all are using our better judgment to conduct these immigration evaluations, right? So basically, in simpler terms, we're all just doing what we think we should be doing. We're all coming up with our own versions of these immigration evaluations. As of the time of this recording, again, today is August 21st, 2023. There are no regulating agencies on immigration evaluations. Which brings the question, how do you conduct an immigration evaluation? How do you do it? And I've seen two schools of thoughts, right? I've seen, I have many colleagues, many friends, actually, therapist friends that do immigration evaluations. Here in Florida, we are a small community of Brazilian therapists, period, that do immigration evaluations. And I happen to be friends with a lot of the Brazilian therapists here that are local, and we've talked about this, and that's where I came up with the theory of there are different school of thoughts when it comes to how to write an immigration evaluation. So again, in my opinion, there are the informational evaluations, and then there are the advocating evaluations. So the informational evaluations tend to be more technical. They tend to be more just straight to the point, shorter evaluations, less pages, very technical, very sciencey, not a lot of room for expression, not a lot of room for expansion of ideas. They tend to be not very, to have a lot of creative writing, persuasive writing, just like I said before, expansion of writing, just because they're very technical, very straight to the point, very sciencey, very neutral, and shorter in length. The pros, in my opinion, is that these evaluations are very, very, very easy to conduct, super easy. Actually, one of my good friends, her evaluations are super, super technical, super short. She does amazing work. It takes her 2 sessions max to evaluate clients, and her evaluations, I've seen templates. They're very straight to the point. She has categories and very technical. You really don't get a lot of after you read the evaluation, you have the feeling of, wow, this was an informational evaluation. I feel neutral. I know about this case. I know what's going on here, but it's very neutral, very science-based. And I think, in my opinion, the greatest benefit is that they're very easy to do, very quick. You're able to deliver to the client what they want in a shorter amount of time. I think that price-wise, I do think that you are, it doesn't take as much, meaning you are getting paid for not a lot of work. Yes, you're doing a lot of work. Let me rephrase that. Yes, you don't get me wrong. I'm not minimizing how much work immigration evaluations take, period. But I think that the informational, technical, very sciencey based, very science limited evaluations are very they are beneficial. Again, you're getting paid your fee for work that you can do, maybe within a couple of hours. I know my colleague, it takes her, I think it takes her about an hour max to do these evaluations. 2 hours of clinical time, and then maximum of one, editing time, and that's it. She's done. And I think the biggest benefit that she gets is she's able to do more evaluations in a shorter amount of time and deliver the evaluations, within the time that the client, in a shorter amount of time and within the time that the client needs. So that's, in my opinion, informational evaluations. Now there's the advocating evaluations that, and again, this is my opinion. This is how I classify them compared based on what I've seen, based on all the work I've seen of other colleagues and from conversations. The advocating evaluations tend to be more lengthy, you'll see more creative writing, you'll see tones of persuasion, you'll see tones of, you'll see argumentative writing, you'll see more emotion. They should be science-based. I mean, every single psychological evaluation should be science-based, obviously. But the advocating evaluations, from what I've seen, they're longer because the therapist will expand on their writing. They'll explain, their point of view. They'll be, like I mentioned already, they're longer evaluations because the therapist will take the time to narrate the person's story. They'll probably include theories, explanations of the diagnoses. They'll talk about information on the country of where the person might be deported to. So they have more of a tone, like I said, an emotional tone to them. They're more advocating, like I said. So in my opinion, these are the two school of thoughts of immigration evaluations. And again, as of the time of this recording, there are no regulating agencies on what the right template is. So I'd like to think that we're all doing our best in keeping these evaluations ethical, and we're abiding by our licensing board's protocol of how to advocate for clients while being true to the profession and neutral. For example, in advocating evaluations, yes, we can be advocating because that is our profession, especially as social workers. But, we can still be ethical and stick to the protocol and be neutral and neutral in situations that require neutrality. For example, when we talk about facts, of course, we're neutral there, of course. But when it comes to the client's symptoms, I mean, if they're having PTSD, flashbacks, severe panic attacks, I mean, they are having, serious acute disruptive symptoms. So we absolutely need to speak in my opinion, in a advocating tone, where we, especially under the recommendations part of the evaluation. So why don't I end with an example? So let's end with exactly that, the clinical recommendations. So my style of writing is more advocating. I've always been a writer. I love writing. In fact, quick fun fact, before going to grad school, I was debating between going to doing a master's, a clinical master's or a research-based master's, just because I love writing. I always have. So even if I could, I can't write concisely. I just can't. But anyways, so back to the example. So under clinical recommendations, I believe an informational recommendations section could be, you just talk about possibly referring a client to a psychiatrist, referring a client to local domestic violence shelters, referring a client to therapeutic modalities, for example, EMDR or, EFT. Very straight to the point, very science-based, very technical. Now, for example, in advocating recommendations portion of an evaluation, it can be more emotional. We can talk about, how you expect the client to thrive by making adjustments to their lives. You expect the client's symptoms to improve once they, make intimate, intentional, and meaningful connections in their lives, and connect with a club that can bring out that foster a sense of home and familiarity. So I think, to just get to the bottom of it, I think the difference between an informational and advocating evaluation has to do with the language that you use, the words, literally the vocabulary that you use. So that's it on today's episode. I hope this helps, and you can find us on social media, on Instagram at immigration_evaluations_center. I'll see you next time. Thank you.